Welcome to the class today. Today, we are considering stave extension beyond two ledger lines. I am David Adeleke, your facilitator for this class. In your previous grades, in grade 1 and grade 2, you have learned about ledger lines, what they are used for. But in this class, you're going to see an advanced way of using ledger lines, and that is the whole essence of this class today. I want you to pay very good attention so that you have a good understanding of this class. Let's quickly jump onto our LOs for this class, which are the learning objectives of this class. One, to understand the rationale behind the use of ledger lines. Two, to understand the principle of note placements on ledger lines. Number three, to identify letter names of notes on ledger lines. And number four, understand the use of octave in place of ledger lines and vice versa. So these are the learning objectives we'll be considering in the course of this class. What's the purpose of ledger lines? Like you have been taught in your previous grades, musical notes are accommodated on stave, which consists of 5 lines and 4 spaces. That's actually the definition of a stave. A stave consists of 5 lines and 4 spaces. And this is where musical notes are written. But we have instances where some notes go beyond the confine of these 5 lines and 4 spaces, going outside either below or above the stave. And that is where we have the introduction of ledger lines. Ledger lines allow composers to write musical notes that are higher or lower than the notes which can fit on the musical stave. So with the help of ledger lines, as a musician or as a composer, you can write above the stave or below the stave. These are short lines. They are not the same length with the normal stave lines, but they are just short lines that are drawn above or below the stave. As you can see in the screenshots here, you can see that these notes are written on the line on the ledger lines. Some of them are above the ledger lines or below. You can see the notes are written on ledger lines. You can see some of them are even 3 ledger lines or 4 ledger lines above or below the stave. And this is actually what we're trying to consider. And each of these ledger lines have names. They are named. So you should be able to identify the names of each of these ledger lines. And because of this multiple ledger lines above and below or below the stave, it's going to alter the way our musical notes are written, most especially notes that are stemmed. What do I mean by notes that are stemmed? Notes that have stem, like from, let's say, minim, crotchets, quaver, semiquaver, all the notes that have stem and down to notes that have tails. The way they are written when you introduce ledger lines above the stave actually matter. You are going to see that in a short while in the course of this class. So now let's look at placement of these notes on ledger lines. There is a standard rule of writing musical notes with stem and tail or tails on the ledger lines. Now, the standard rule states that any note that is below the third line of a stave, the stem is a must go up. The middle line of the stave is a point of choice. I'm coming to explain that. It's a point of choice, and while the stem goes up when the note goes above the third line of the stave. Okay, look at this example of this stave. We have 5 lines and 4 spaces. The middle line is here. And what is the letter name of this middle line of this stave? That is what? That is D. Any notes below the D, below this third line, which is the middle line of this stave, this term must go up like this. As you can see the first note is on A, the second note is on C. And the name of these notes are what? The names of these notes, I'm not talking of the letter names now. This note itself is a crotchet. This is a crotchet. But their position on the stave, you can see that they are still below the what? The third line of the stave. So by standard or by law, the stem must go up. And when the stem is going up, your stem is to the right. You can see the way it is, not to your left hand side. If not, you are going to be writing the notes wrongly. All right. So the stem goes up, it goes up. If by any means you have a note on this third line, that is a line of choice. At that point, the choice is yours. You as a composer or as a musician, you are given that privilege to decide where you want, uh, which direction you want the stem to go, either up or down. If it goes up, you're fine. If it comes down, you're fine. That is your own privilege to decide. You can decide that, okay, on the third line of the stave, I want the stem to go up. You are not going to be penalized. Or I want the stem to come down. You are not going to be penalized. Immediately, it crosses this third line and it comes into this space, which is immediately above the third line. It is a must that the stem comes down. If you change the stem to go up, then you are violating the rule, then you're going to be penalized for that. I hope that is quite understood. Okay, so you only have the choice to make on the third line. That is the only privilege you have as a composer or a musician. Now, let's quickly identify this. Identification of letter names of music of notes on ledger lines. Can anyone identify the letter names of these notes? What are the letter names of this note? Sorry, I think I missed a word there. What are the letter names of this notes? Can anyone tell us that? No one? Wow, somebody is saying something. How do we identify it? Yes, that should be what should come to your mind. How do you identify? You cannot identify this without something. And what is that thing? You need a clef at the beginning. So it is a type of clef that is placed at the beginning that will determine the name of this note, the name of this note, the name of this note, and the name of this note. I think with this now, you've got an idea on how to answer this question. So a quick one, I'll just be waiting for you to answer the question on your paper. Let's put a treble clef. If you put a treble clef on this, what will be your answer to these questions? You have just uh 30 seconds. Then, if you substitute it with a bass clef on the other hand, what will be the answer to this question? All right. I guess we are almost done, right? Imagine you have a treble clef at the beginning of the stave. What will be the letter names of these notes on the ledger lines? Then replace it with a bass clef. Now, a quick one. Let's say what the answer will look like if you have a treble clef. If you have a treble clef, the first note will be E, the second note will be C, the third note will be A, and the last note will be F. Did you get that? If you didn't get anyone right, then mark yourself wrong. All right? So let's quickly do the correction for the second one. If you have the bass stave now, what will be the answer to this question? Wow. If we have the bass stave on this, then the first note will be G, the second note will be E, the third note will be C, and the last note will be A. I think that's simple enough. You can work more on other examples, okay? Now let's continue. We look at octave. We call it octave or 8VA. You can see most times you see it as 8VA is a short form of octave. And the word octave simply means what? Eight is from the word octagon, so meaning eight, okay? Now, the octave sign helps to minimize the use of many ledger lines above or below the musical stave. What do we mean by octave in music? For example, if I have this sound, do, give me an octave of it. An octave of this sound I've just given is do, 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 do. How is it like that? It's just like I'm starting from the lower do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The first note is low, the second note is high. The difference apart between the first starting note, which is do, and the ending note, which is also do, is eight apart, which is an octave. So that's why I said do, do. So that's an octave. So, but when you write in musical terms or in musical way, there are uh there are instances where you don't want to introduce ledger lines above your stave. You can introduce the use of this octave. Look at how it is. The musical notes are written within the confine of the stave, but they are performed at an octave position. Yes, you can write the musical notes using an octave sign or symbol. It will be written on a normal stave within the confine of the stave without using um ledger lines. But when you're performing them, they'll be performed at an octave level. All right? You won't be singing do 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 when you're supposed to be singing do 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 do. Do you get a difference now? You see, the first sound is low, the second one is high at an octave higher. So if you're playing on any instrument, instead of playing an octave lower, you're going to be playing at an octave higher. Or if you're singing, you're going to be singing at an octave higher. Now look at the way octave is um, denoted. We use 8 apostrophe VA. And when you have this at the beginning of any note, you are going to see some broken lines. It will spread to the point you want it to get to. This broken lines is just telling you that from where you have this octave uh, is with the broken lines till where this line is pointing down here. That's the point of octave. It means that you're having these four notes to be at an octave. Look at it now. The first note here is C. The second note here is D. The third note here is um, E. And the fourth note here is F. What's the key of this music? Yeah, we can say it's C major because it does not have any accidental. So it's a C major key. So we can say this is re, mi, fa, re, mi, fa. But yeah, we are writing it on within the confine of the stave, right? But because of this octave, it should sound re, mi, fa, not re, mi, fa. So in the real sense, the way it should be written is what you have to go octave higher on this. Look for this fifth line is what? Is F. The space above it is G. The first ledger line is A. The space is B. And what the next space is the second ledger line above the treble stave is what? Is E. Sorry, is C rather. Pardon my me for that. So this is C. Then above it, you can see D, E, F. Just like what you have here. Instead of introducing this ledger lines, you can see that for us to accommodate this note called F, we have to introduce one, two, three ledger lines. Unlike in this case, we don't need ledger lines, but we have what? Uh, put it as an octave because of this octave sign. Is that okay? So you might be asked in your exam to write this extract in an octave format, or either they give you in an octave format or they give you in the real way. But most times they will give you in the octave format, expecting that you should rewrite it and introduce what? Ledger lines. They want to know how careful are you in the use of ledger lines. Is that okay? That's the whole essence of this. How careful would you be so that where you're supposed to put the notes on the line, you're not putting it on the space while introducing ledger lines. So that's the whole essence of that. You can see the same thing. Now, this when it is octave higher, the octave sign is above the stave. That's another thing you need to know. And when it is octave lower, the octave sign is below the stave. You can see this is also C, B, A, G. Can you see it now? Rewritten as what? C octave lower now because it has to go an octave down instead of you having do. Okay, let's say do ti la so do ti la so, but at an octave lower because of this what? Octave sign. Is that okay? When you see it above, it's telling you that an octave higher. When you see it below, it's telling you an octave lower. Okay, let's jump on to a short exercise on this octave. Study this music, extract. Look at this, the key signature, the time signature, and the notes. And you are asked to what? Choose the one that indicates that this music is written at an octave higher out of these three. All right, I'm waiting. 10 seconds more. Is it option A, option B, or option C? All right. Just type in your answers on the chat, then I'll tell you the answer to it. Thank you. We move on. Now, we want to quickly talk about great stave and same pitch writing. Now, musical notes can be written on the same pitch from one stave to the other. On the same pitch from one stave to the other, meaning you're writing a particular uh, piece of music from either the treble stave to the bass stave or bass stave to the treble stave, as the case may be. So this employs the use of ledger lines, either above or below. All right. Now, And that is the principle of great stave. And what is a great stave? A great stave is the combination of both the treble and bass staves, but separated by a middle ledger line known as the middle C. You must have been told that. Look at this screenshot here. I have the treble stave up, the bass stave down, but in between them is a green line. The green line is the line that separates between the treble stave and the bass stave, and this green line is called the middle C. All right. That's the middle C. That's what separates between them. Now, let's do this. But you can see a note is written below the line, below the middle C. If this line is C, then what is the letter name of this note, of this space where the note is? Definitely it's going to be B because B comes before C. All right. Now, let's do a separation. Let's just detach the two and let's see how it should look like. If I detach the treble stave down to the middle C and to the note, that is what you have here. You can see the arrow pointing from up to this point. You can see that the note is below the what? The middle C, right? Which is B. So that's the position if we detach it. Now let's look at it in the other way around too. Let's detach the bass stave down to the note as well. You can see the arrow pointing that the bass stave down to this. What is the letter name of this note on the bass stave? Of course, it's what? This is F, G, A, B, isn't it? That's letter B, right? Now let's check the letter name with respect to what? To this treble stave. This is middle C, right? C coming down, B. You can see that the notes is bearing the same name and the same position between the two staves. All right. So the same position between the two staves, only that when we separate, it will look as if you are going to be introducing more ledger lines on the bass stave because the higher the notes become, the more it encroaches into the treble stave. You're going to see that shortly in in an extract of a music piece. Okay, so you can see that the same position and it's still the same pitch. But the question is, if we're going to perform it, let's assume that we are in a choir practice and want to perform something like this. Yes, to the female singers, they will sing it as do. To the male singer, they will still sing it as do do. Only that we might not be able to have the same kind of voice texture, but the same pitch. Everybody. It's just like we're doing voice training, okay? Everybody's do re mi fa sol la ti do. Everybody, irrespective of your part, okay? So everybody is singing the same thing, only that on different voices, either male or female. Is that okay? That's what makes the difference. All right. So let's move on. Look at this example. We want to rewrite this on what's it called? The same pitch. You have to rewrite this treble this piece on the treble stave on the same pitch below. Look at it. This is okay, two ledger lines below. This is C, B, A, G. All right. So it means that these two notes are G, G. Now, when you're bringing it down to the bass stave, you're going to be having what? G, G. You can see that these are on the in the space. Also, they'll be in the space when it comes to what? To the bass stave. But one thing is very, very important, very, very important that you need to take note of. In the bass stave, what happens? The stem of these two notes, because they are quavers rather, they are going up. They are below the middle line of the stave, right? So they are below the middle line. That's why their stems are going up. But when you are rewriting them in the bass stave, because they're already above the middle line. Yeah, what happens? Their stems are coming down. You need to be very, very careful of that. That's one of the things your examiner will be checking out for. Okay? Now let's look at this. All these notes are on the ledger line CCC, right? CCCC. So meaning that you have to write these other notes too on the ledger line above the treble or above the bass stave CCC, because the first ledger line above the bass stave is C. But yeah, also you still have to consider that the stem and the tails of this note. So they must come down because they're already above. So if you continue like that, you discover that everything on the bass stave is written exactly on the treble stave is written exactly on the bass stave. The difference is just the position of the stem of these notes, because that's the whole essence of this. They want to know whether you are going to follow the rule of stemming above the third line or below the third line. That's the whole essence of this. And how can you place notes on ledger lines so that they will still correspond with what you have? Look at this last note. Look at it on the treble stave. The last note on the treble stave here is what? G, right? Now let's look at this. Does this correspond with it? You can see that it's also on the line. Let's start from where are we going to start from? Let's start from this fourth line. The fourth line is F, right? The space is G. Keep on. The next line is A. The next space is B. The first ledger line is C. The space is D. The second letter line is E. The space is F. And the third ledger line is G. Now, somebody is going to ask, okay, what if I decide to write this G here on this space? You are no longer writing on the same pitch. You are rather writing it an octave lower. All right? That is an octave lower. If I bring this note that is here now, this is on the G line. The whole essence of these three ledger lines means that this note has already encroached into the treble stave. But we are still assuming it to be on the bass stave because we are using ledger lines and the stem is coming down, okay? But logic, by logic, it is already in the treble stave. Now, I was about to ask a question. What if I write this same G, I write it here? Yes, this space, which is the fourth space of this bass stave, is G. What if I write it there? Is it not G? Yes, it is G. Or if I decide to write it on the first line here, which is the first line of this stave, it is also G. The implication is that it is no longer the same pitch. But if you write it on this, in this space here, it is an octave lower. If I write it on this line, it is 2 octaves lower. You can see now, that's the difference. 2 octaves lower if it is written on this line. If it is written in this space, it is 1 octave lower. All right? So you need to be very, very careful. If it is the same pitch, what will be your guiding principle is that once it is the same pitch, if the note is on the line, it must fall on the line, and that will be on ledger lines. Is that okay? If the note is on the line, it must be on ledger lines as well. If the note is in the space, let me look for a note that is in the space like this. You can see that it's in the space. It must be in the space like this. Is that okay? So don't mistakenly write an octave lower or 2 octaves lower. If not, you're going to be mixing up a lot of things. I guess this has been an expository time. I wouldn't know if you've got any question to ask. If you have any question, feel free to type in your question or just signify by raise of hand, then we'll entertain all those questions. So you've got some of your assignments to attempt from your workbook, exercise 1 and 2 on page 9 of the ABRSM workbook 3. I hope you had a very great day today.